everybody, welcome back to the Bill and Ray Show. I'm out in the torch shop to make another marble. I'm going to do a little prep with some tubing and some Frit, and that's going to be our center compression element. So let's see what we can get going. I had a piece of this from last session, but I wasn't really sure about using it for this purpose because it looks a little thin. So I've got some Andromeda Frit here. And I'm going to shovel some into a tube. I'll try and do a lot more than I did before. So the idea here, so we've got some Frit in the tube. I'm going to slowly heat it up. It'll start sticking to the inside of the tubing. And I want to collapse this tubing into a stringer without an air line down the middle, so we need to get this to condense down, and we'll just kind of work our way across it, push that air out of there. Now with that Frit, it makes it a little bit harder to visualize where the air line in the center is. So I'm kind of expecting it to shrink down a little thinner than that. Try drawing this out just a bit. Yeah, I still don't really have a good visualization of whether this area that I'm heating is all the way collapsed without air inside. I kind of trust that it must be it must be closed down. Yeah, I know some people saying, oh, you just need to attach a vacuum to the other end. It's like, yeah, that would help. And I have a vacuum pump. But I'm trying not to complicate things if I don't have to. I'm kind of holding this upwards, let that heat kind of rise up. And hopefully collapse that air out of there. I got this kind of spun up. I don't really mean to do that or need to do that. So I'm just going to pull this out into a stringer. So we'll get kind of down to, seems to be the end of this. And we'll swap tubing for a handle. Now I'm going to try and pull this out. Pretty thin. Okay, that stringer definitely has some Andromeda Frit in it. Okay, so I mentioned that's going to be a compression element. So we're going to jump to our large rod here and work on building this up to a compression stage. So I've got my pumpy rods laid out here. Got some color for the backside. A little bit of black stringer for patching up some sections in the background. And the background is going to be some frit and then some color. Some fuming and then some color. First, we need to make a large diameter foot on the end of this clear rod to work our compression magic. We've got a beautiful blue sky out there, a bunch of sunshine today. We are less than a week out from Christmas as I'm recording this. Speaking of which, next week and the following week, I won't be doing any videos. Got holiday plans and things to do. So we'll get back into the new year a little bit down the road. I really appreciate everybody that's been following along with my videos or checking this out. Just be a little gap and I'll get back to it. So I'm trying to gather up a pretty good chunk of glass here. I'm trying to kind of lay things out on my little rod rest here to kind of go in the order that I'm going to use it. Except this piece we just made should be up here in the front, the front of the line. So that would be the first thing we put in here. Okay, well this gets to a pretty good size, and we have to let it settle down a bit because we need to heat just that front end face to make our flattened end. So then we try and angle that end right into the flame. We're going to get that pretty good and hot. I'm going to drop it straight down onto the pad here. And we'll rinse and repeat that a couple times. Just hold that vertical and rotate it around a little bit to try and get a perpendicular flat face. Okay, next step we'll kind of clean up the chill marks on there. And let that sit for a moment. So this next point is to find a center. It's not always super simple to see where the center is, so we'll just kind of poke a mark on here and we'll rotate around. That actually hit pretty close. Okay, I'm going to try and get this facing me. And I can start there and draw a spiral. Come out here towards the edge. Yeah, that should be pretty cool. So now we're into the compression phase of this. So we're going to go at it from the edge. Because we want that whole front face to melt in. It's making a few little weird contortions. I didn't draw that spiral very spread out, which would give it a little more focused look. It's got a few interactions between the different rings. That's okay. So come into our plate. Not a lot of pressure, just settle that out flat. I'll tweak my torch to get that Lynx torch pretty hot and heavy, and the Red Max is kind of tapered down, a little bit tighter, smaller flame. Again, I got a little bit of an angle going, so it's falling back in here. Now I'm just dropping it down, letting the weight of that rod basically be the pushing force. Actually kind of holding that up and not letting it squish too fast and heavy. So it's already encapsulated a lot of this, and able to focus a little bit more heat right in the belly button there at the end. And again, I'm letting it touch that graphite pad, but kind of holding it up. So we get past the main compression phase. Now I need to at some point here transition this to a cone-shaped end. So this whole process is basically transforming. You're getting this clear glass up on this side to move across and down and surround. And the initial layer is up in here in the middle. What now is in the middle, it was on the face. So we're focusing the heat towards this very end, and now the main part of this glass is all just trapped up in here in the middle. And then we can start using a little carver action on here. cut this in. Oops, got cut in my sleeve. All right. That all worked quite well. So next phase, I'm going to do some blue-green Frit. So this is pretty similar. I've done this step a number of times, but the next step will be different. So again, kind of getting that angled part of the cone perpendicular to the flame. Get this good and hot. And take a roll in the Frit. Can't quite multitask all that at once. Okay, you can go away, you can go away. Okay, get that flattened out. Oops, don't need that. Sometimes I think I'm going to push that button and turn the torch off, but it doesn't quite work that way. Okay, I'm going to do some gold fume on here. But not with that piece. Just went bye-bye. Try and sit that little speck of gold right at the end of the candle on the torch. You have to have the base glass down to a low enough temperature that it doesn't just burn off the gold as soon as it touches it. So I'm kind of pausing for moments there to kind of keep that base glass from getting too hot. Just trying to make sure we got a good bit of gold on there. Okay, next thing is going to do some bands of color. I'm going to start with the Cobalt. And we're going to come down across this. Let's see. I'm not sure if that helps, but start up here on the outside edge and we'll draw down. So the first one's always easy. Now I got to do that again. And then we're going to do one more. And they're not exactly even spaced, but they're kind of three sections there. And now we're going to do the same thing with some red. Set. Just remembered my instructions. I should be reading them. Yeah, first we're going to cook this down a little. Very important step here. It's easy to get carried away and skip over things you plan to do. So the big thing at this stage is I want to get rid of that gold fume that's in between the lanes here. And I also want to relax those sharp edges. Now we can do a red. Get out here a little ways away from the little milder flame. Okay, that's the color. let this heat in. So we're trying to get some elevation changes here with these colored. We've got pretty good thickness of colored glass there. Try and get this to melt in a bit before we go to the next little step. As this gets heated up, you can come in and be a little more aggressive with the torch. And we'll just kind of finish it out with a little more of a ring. Okay, so now I want to get some black cover in those little in-between places. Kind of coming along the edge of each one of these kind of void areas. And we're going to come back and fill in some more. This first line actually did a pretty good job. I think I got most of it. Let's see what this looks like when we squish it in a bit. And we're going to do a stripe across this top edge. Try and give us a good definition on this transition edge. And that should complete the interior look. Shouldn't really leave that up on the bench. Keep your drink, which you shouldn't have out here in the first place, away from the torch. Okay, putting the blackout curtains on the end there. Well, let's see. I'll put down a little silver on the back side here. And then we can get into filling in the back. Well, I hope everybody's doing well out there. Lots of craziness going on in the world as usual. So we try and create a space that the crazy just can't get into. It's just our own crazy here. In order to be creative, you gotta just tune out the world as it seems and insert your own. I reject your reality and insert my own. That way, we're true to our own creative ability. When you get stuck, remember to breathe. Just breathe. Breath exercises, box breathing, that's all very, very useful stuff. We've got some Oculus headsets. I don't use it nearly enough, but Ray and I, our favorite thing to do with our Oculus headset is to use the Trip app. Trip has a whole lot of meditative and daily focus, daily calm And that's an incredible way to tune out the world and go to another space. Carefully coming up against that transition line between the colored back and the clear front lens. Okay, that first layer, we'll heat that up and kind of adjust the edges. Also burning out some of that fume on the lens side. Fume always spills over. Didn't leave myself much on the end there. I'll leave the torch cranked up while we put on some more clear. Yeah, cozying up to the torch like this here is easier to do in the wintertime than the summertime. Just doing it a bit more. Yeah, we'll just roast our marshmallow here. One thing about these cameras, CMOS cameras I guess in particular, is they're actually extremely sensitive to infrared. And when you have a camera that's intended to ignore the infrared and just look at the visible light. They have to actually have a filter in there to knock out the infrared. But some of these little cameras that I'm using, they don't necessarily do the best job of that. So when these things glass gets to a certain heat, and the cobalt is that it had in those stripes is what they consider an infrared emitter. It actually puts out a lot of infrared when it's hot, more than other glass. So that's actually absorbing the heat and emitting infrared in a way that is different than just the hot glass. So the cameras sometimes get pretty blown out because of that. So I've got them adjusted, trying to stop it down basically, but they have kind of limited abilities. Main camera is a Canon mirrorless, kind of the low-end camera, but it does, you know, if anybody can see the images, the overhead view is the best camera. Okay. After that, we are going onwards and upwards to our backside color. And we've got some Silver Strike 5. So our neutral color we're going to put down first. Oops, dang. There's a thin section of glass at the end of that stringer. Okay, who's next? We're going to do some sparkling glass and unobtanium. Okay, and then for the debut of this green, which I don't usually use as a backing color because the green that I've had, most of them, are a little finicky. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, actually warmed up. I'm not sure what the temperature is outside right now. It's really not that cold. Yesterday really warmed up. Pretty crazy for middle of December. I had a little bit of wet, heavy snow, and that's all melted off and gone. So before I go and rake these colors, I do try and get them really cooked in more than just the minimal amount. Get them to really settle down. And last week's, I think I didn't wait long enough before I started raking, so it was flopping all over the place. I'll give it a little bit more time today. As many times as I've done this, there's still all these little subtle variables. Trying to focus the heat a little ways ahead of where the raking is actually happening. And on this particular pattern, when I transition from this edge to the end, I have to pause here a moment and get that heat to build up. Anybody wanting to play around with this sort of thing, just start out by making just straight lines, independent straight lines. Yeah, still went a little off base, but that's okay. Sometimes I squish this in. The other option is to grab it and pull it out a bit. And just make this one a little smaller today. Okay, grab a punchy here. Condensing that lens, it's expanding out that circumference. Okay, time to rip into it. Just kind of skimming off all this outer layer of glass that's got some fuming on it. It's the original manufactured glass. The outer edge of the glass is always a little different than the interior. And it can get stuffed up and dirty, and we try and clean it off before we start working with it, but definitely seems like it has a little different chemistry on the surface. As you're working glass, you're burning off some of the elements that make up the glass. And you're basically changing its composition the longer it's in the flame, the higher the temperature. All that bright yellow that people see off the glass, that's mostly sodium burning off. Okay, now we just got to get it rounded up. Okay, let's try and put this in the marble mold here, and that pretty well gets the front lens shaped up. Just gonna cook off some of the ripples in it, and maybe even some dust. Okay, transfer this over. Keep rotating through all that motion. Still kind of floppy on the country now. Yeah, you can squish that little blib in. Okay, let's run it in the marble mold. Maybe just a tad undersized for the 2-inch marble mold. The smaller sized one works just fine. Still looking to clean up that transition edge. It's usually the zone that takes the most patience to heal up. give that a little stretch. Okay, that's pretty good. I'll do some polishing. Transfer it for the last time. When I started out making marbles, they did a lot of back and forth transfers. So that's okay if you need to go back and forth with it. That's totally normal. With this, because this is a clear lens part here, you don't want any kind of bubbles or scum or foreign glass in there. Just pluck out some. Okay, let it sit for a second to skin over. Kind of cool it down a little bit because you don't want the shape. It's pretty much got the right shape. So now we're just going to do that surface, healing up that surface layer. I still was seeing a little wiggle, so we're going to keep at this for a minute. I think we got it. Okay, well, our little solar system in the middle there is plenty dense. Some little sparkles to it. I sure appreciate you guys hanging out watching this video. If you're seeing it to the end, good on you. We really appreciate it. Looking good. Very cool, man. I enjoy making marbles when things go well. it's not always the greatest, but and sometimes things look really cool. The next day, yeah, not so much. But this one, very nice, very nice. There we go. Another good marble in the kiln. You guys all take care. Be good to yourself. Be good to those around you. And we will see you next time on another adventure next year. It'll be a little while, but it'll be good. See you guys.